Lyman makes an announcement about his future. Will he be in Ohio State next year? Will he go to the NFL? We'll discuss that on today's show. Also, Jeff Hunt from the Off the Ball Network is with us. We'll be providing our end-of-year grades for the head coach, Ryan Day, and what he can improve from what he learned during this season. All that and more in this episode of Locked On Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes, part of Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Monday, a Monday evening in January, on the 17th day in January in the year 2022. And today's episode is brought to you by Sonos. Experience the game like never before with Sonos Arc, the premium smart soundbar for TV, movies, music, gaming, and more. Visit Sonos.com to learn more. I can tell you with firsthand knowledge that the Sonos Arc is worth it. It immediately enhances your in-home viewing experience. Jeff Hunt is back with us. Not our last time with Jeff. We'll get him twice this week. Jeff Hunt's here. Last grade we're handing out, we kind of asked Jeff the position coaches, too many changes. Tried to do those. But today it's all about Ryan Day. Jeff Hunt, how you doing, man? Welcome back to the show.
I'm doing great, Jay. This is a fun time of year to when it's all speculation. Guys like us, we can be really right and we can be really wrong. We might get graded ourselves. It's cool. It's been a very, very exciting for college football in general, the offseason, and especially the Ohio State Buckeyes. So there's a lot to unwrap here.
There is a lot to unwrap, and the excitement around the Buckeyes. I was on the Twitter today. I don't have push notifications on campus. Mr. Dawand Jones announced that he'll be returning for another year at the Ohio State University. Jeff, I kind of expected this to be the move. I know he kind of would put up some feelers out there, put a video out there of some highlights. But I talked to Ryan Roberts in the middle of the season. He didn't say yes or no. He said, I said, do you think that Dawand Jones should go to the NFL? He said, I said, as of right now, this is the middle of the season, a lot to go on. So I don't think it's a good move for him to go. And I said, do you think he's a little stiff? He agreed with that. But we look at Dawand Jones, what he did. You're a starter at Ohio State at right tackle. You're on an island. You're going up against guys that are faster than you, quicker than you, that it's you one-on-one. You got to figure this out. He did a really good job out there, and I think him at right tackle next year with Stroud at quarterback, Paris Johnson Jr. possibly going to left tackle. Jeff, I am excited about the Ohio State offensive line in 2022.
Yeah. I was actually, you kind of broke it to me. It's been a really busy week. I don't know if, as of we record right now, there's a foot of snow sitting on Central Ohio, but I was excited about it. I thought the same thing. It was too early for him to go. He's not evolved. He was one of those, when we gave the offensive line grade, we talked about they were really good. They were really good pass blockers, but they were also really good at just kind of being in the way, which there's nothing wrong with that. The first thing you got to be especially as a tackle, you have to have a certain amount of mass to you. Jones absolutely has that. And I think this is one of the few positions on the field that it's not near the risk staying for another year. They all wear the protective knee braces now. Not that a guy can't get hurt, but they don't, the guys rolling into their knees and stuff doesn't happen near like it did because of the braces and stuff. So you've got some on-field protection. And I think an offensive lineman, they have to be really smart. They have to work as a unit. And one more year of being in the system, especially the way we saw Stroud advance, now you can really learn about playing a position. And I've had a lot of discussion about this lately too. I may do a whole show on Jeff Needs Sports, but I'm not sure. But about how the right side of the offensive line has become so important because the best pass rushers in the NFL now are on the right side, their left side, but they come across the right tackle. When you think of a TJ Watt or a JJ Watt, his brother, or some of these guys, how that's changed, as opposed to, the blind side for all these years. So I I would like, you don't always have to be the left tackle anymore, Jay. You've brought it up a lot. 10 times more about the offensive line than I do. But a right tackle has become vastly more important than it did in, like, say, the 80s or 90s in football. I think it's a great decision by him. I think whatever money he made or missed by not going this year, he immediately makes up because he's going to be that much better a player going into the NFL draft next year. So I think it's a no-brainer. I think he gets to have a blast. I think he's going to have a really good season. I think it makes the offensive line at Ohio State immeasurably better going into the next season. I mean, if you're a college football team and you can bring back 3 decent starters on the offensive line, you really got a leg up in the competition. I wholeheartedly believe it's the correct decision. And as a fan, I'm very happy about it.
As a fan, I think many people listening to this or watching on YouTube, you're probably thinking, is this a good move for Dawand Jones? He played very well. I think one thing with offensive linemen, one thing that Jeff said very well is that the knee braces that the players wear, they're mandated by the NCAA. This isn't a thing that only Ohio State players do. This is mandated for every collegiate offensive lineman. You have to wear those braces. But also, I've also heard, Jeff, the different pro scouts, they say that 12 games, 13 games as a offensive lineman in college, you're still raw. Like,
Yeah.
they still want more film on you. Same thing with I think quarterbacks and Stroud. Yeah, if Stroud was eligible, he could have come out. But you still look like a raw talent, a raw prospect. One season is not enough in college football. It's really weird how in college basketball, this isn't a knock, just differences in the system. College basketball, one and done, that's expected. A player comes out of high school, goes to the G League, G League elite team, plays those pros basically in the developmental league, then goes to the NBA. Okay, that's expected, the one and done type of thing. Not so much in college football. And I think Dawand Jones, he was smart by putting the feelers out there to see what other people are going to say. Put the video out there, get what feedback. Maybe you get a pro scout or two to quote tweet your video to talk about some things that you did. Or they replied to you privately. Hey, young man, work on this, work on that. You're good, but you're just not up to par just yet. He did a phenomenal job with that. But I do think Dawand Jones, one thing that he can do while coming back, and this has been something that I've been thinking about even when I watched him play high school basketball all the time in Indianapolis. You're 6'8", 360. He was a force down low on the basketball court, and I still don't know how he was so move at that size. But he's kept that weight. And it's weird. I saw him at a basketball game over the weekend in Indianapolis. He's not as like, he's large. Like, I can't deny it, but he looks like he is not your typical 360-pound human being. More muscle, not as much fat as you would think, but he can still shave about 20, maybe 30. Now, I'm not like shaving 20. You're going to lose a lot of power. But if he shaves 30 pounds and keeps that power, think about this. Right now, I don't know if he gets drafted within the first 2 days of the draft if he comes out, rounds 1 through 3. But I do think next year, if he cuts a little weight, it's not as stiff, a little bit more agile than he already is. Jeff, that's a day 2 pick easily. I mean, easily at right tackle, day 2 pick potential starter when he gets to the NFL. I mean, these are all positive moves for Dawand Jones to be the best pro prospect that he can be.
Yeah, two things that, we'll just kind of keep springboarding here. And another thing too about being, especially a tackle, being raw, like you said, and going to the NFL and being a little stiff. First of all, the first thing scouts are going to do is look at the Michigan tape, and they're going to tear him apart because that's what they do with linemen. Your worst game or your deficiencies matter more as an offensive lineman. That's how they're graded. And so then you get drafted. We'll say it's a 3rd round or whatever. You're going to go to a team. Well, even in practice, the guy across from you is going to be some hungry freak athlete, defensive end that wants to embarrass you every play. Like, I know he's your teammate, but he is not in drills, and he is not in OTAs, and that can bury an offensive lineman. And a 3rd or 4th round offensive lineman rookie contract is not something a team can't get away from. So you can just be dismissed and be gone. that's just how the NFL works. You're not a quarterback to where they're like, nah, we're never going to give up, or a running back to where like they'll fight through it or they'll protect you. They'll protect you. No, they will let an offensive tackle hang out there to dry to see what they're made of. They'll let the guy. So let's say you just went to a team last year like Dallas, and then all of a sudden you got Micah Parsons across from you. Well, he's going to embarrass you, week in and week out. And that can really stunt your growth. I like it. And another thing, something else that's major that's happened for Jones is he's got a new coach that's very successful. Is going to bring more evolution to his game, more techniques. It's going to really broaden what the Ohio State offensive lineman last year. I'll just say it, very simple design, nothing fancy or whatever. So when an NFL scout looks at that, they're not seeing what they want to see in today's NFL. When you have pulling tackles, we've talked about this, Jay. You have pulling tackles, pulling centers, the guards are crazy. I mean, if you saw the big guy touchdowns this year, there was a couple during wild card playoff weekend that these guys are athletic freaks. I mean, they really look like a 1980s or 90s tight end now at tackle, and you've got to be that. So that's where the bar is going to be set. I really think it was the right decision, and it wasn't the right time to go. And I think that he can improve his stock so immensely going to next year, especially with the basketball background. He's got the footwork. It's cliche. You just brought it up how he can shave some pounds. I think he has the opportunity to really develop into a special talent, if nothing else, a giant contract, which, let's be honest with each other. That's what these kids want. So I'm happy for the team. I'm happy for the fans, and I'm happy for Dawand. I really am.
We're tapped into Locked On Buckeyes here on a Monday evening, live on YouTube and on Twitter, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're here with Jeff Hunt from the Off the Ball Network. And Jeff, transitioning from Dawand Jones returning for another season, I am really excited. Jeff talked about 3 returning starters, Paris Johnson Jr., Luke Whippler, and then Dawand Jones. You could kind of sprinkle in Matt Jones there too. It didn't really start very much at left guard, maybe one game. However, I do think he'll be a starter next year. And I mean, the offensive line next year, I love whoever the other guard is, Donovan Jackson, backup, Harry Miller, who missed all of this past season, whoever it is, I'm excited. But another thing I'm excited about is to talk about what we have seen, what we witnessed from Ryan Day this year. We have given out our grades for the offense positions, for the defensive positions. We're going to do, yes, Jeff and I were going to do the position coaches, but there are 4 absences, and it seems really stupid that some got fired, Matt Barnes took a job literally hours after the Rose Bowl was over. So I'm like, no, axe that. But Ryan Day is still here. Yes, there are rumors that Ryan Day will go possibly to the NFL. Maybe the Raiders, maybe the Bears. Bears got a quarterback in Justin Fields. The Raiders have a better quarterback in the NFL in Derek Carr. But Ryan Day this past year in 2021, he had a tough task. Very, 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 very tough task. You have a new defensive coordinator, never coached that position ever in his life. You have Matt Barnes, who's now your new secondary coach. You got Al Washington, had issues in 2020. You keep him around. You have Larry Johnson, who some say he's on the verge of possibly retiring. On the offensive side, I'm going through this on purpose. You have a guy in Coach Greg Studerara, who had issues, I do believe, with the offensive line in 2020. Saw some of those again in 2021. You had Tony Alford. Things normally are pretty solid at the running back position. Brad Hartline excelled. Parker Fleming as special teams coach. You have Corey Dennis at quarterback, which that was, I think Corey Dennis, quarterback coach, is really kind of the unsung hero of the year with the way that he worked with C.J. Stroud. But all of that goes into the things that Ryan Day has to oversee. Then you add in 85 scholarship players, 100-plus players total on the team. It's a lot for one man to handle. You add in the prestige of Ohio State, the tradition at Ohio State, the path that every fan, player, coach thinks that Ohio State should be on. There's a lot of pressure on Ryan Day.
Yes.
Jeff, for this past season, for everything that went into it, I'm a tough grader already. I'm in between a B and a B+. I want to be nice, go B+. I don't think this was an A type of year grading at all for him coaching. I think that he had fundamental issues prior to the season starting that literally lingered throughout every game in the season. But I think Ryan Day giving him a B plus, it's not crazy. I even personally think if you give Ryan Day a B in this year, it would not be crazy. I think if you go A minus, I don't know where you Jeff and I don't know where each other are. I think if you give, I think for me personally, if you go A minus, A or A plus, I think you're skewed and you're looking at this in a biased way and not properly evaluating what took place this year. Jeff, I'm going solid B plus with Ryan Day this year and his coaching. Where are you at?
I went with a straight B, and for
Okay.
everything you just said. And basically, what I did was I broke it down to I graded him on, as soon as the national championship game ended to when the season started. I called that my off season, and I kind of gave him a C there. And my thought process was, and you alluded to some of it, as soon as the season started, we saw the deficiencies in this team. The expectations were super high. We watched that Minnesota game. We all said the same thing. Quarterback wasn't ready. Defense struggled mightily. Players in the wrong position. All these rotations and all these things. And I'm like, if we're seeing it first game, that's on the coach. He's got to basically have the crystal ball, of this team. So he's got to see it in the spring. He's got to see it all summer. So why didn't he recognize the deficiencies? That was my grade against him. Now my plus for him in the offseason, I thought he picked the right quarterback. It was tough. It's hard to remember after everything that Stroud's done, went to New York, had a chance. It could have had the Heisman in his hands basically before he goes to Ann Arbor. One of the greatest Rose Bowls we've ever seen. All this, blah, 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 blah. We know that. It's hard to remember that midsummer that you and I both did shows of who's going to be quarterback QB1 for Ohio State. So I thought he handled that very well, considering you don't know who your quarterback's going to be, but you're also, I believe they came into the season ranked 3 or 4, whichever you want to say there. So I thought he did a good job basically picking the quarterback. So kind of gave him that, and then, and other things like that. So I killed him on the offseason. I thought he did a great job through the season, maintaining, developing Stroud, just kind of how he handled it. Again, the first month of the season, we're all having this conversation. Is it time for, Miller? Is it time for McCord? Which is crazy to say, kids that aren't even on the team now. The other 3 quarterbacks aren't on the team now. We can't even, let's just throw in this crazy Ewers situation to where one of the highest rated prospects all time in high school football jumps onto the team, cancels the senior season, drops into Ryan Day's lap while he's trying to get CJ Stroud ready for the season. Like, these are things that a head coach has to deal with, not to mention, an offensive coach. So, when you bring up the quarterback coach, great job to him. So it was things like that. I took that in consideration. Thought he handled the quarterback situation very well. Stroud got better. He sat him down for the Akron game, which I believe changed Ohio State's season. We've talked about that. So, his offense is really good. I guess my biggest knock was, he didn't recognize in the offseason the deficiencies, or he let it go. He kept some of the coaches, and we'll never know why. Ryan Day is in a weird position. I know everybody, especially Ohio State fans, take umbrage with what Harbaugh said about being born on third and thinking you hit a triple. But there honestly is some truth to that in the football. To take over the most powerful, the biggest college football program in the world, that's by the numbers. I'm not saying the best. I'm saying it's the biggest college football program in the world as your first head coaching job. It is a different animal. So he's got a lot of benefits going into that, and he's got a lot of negatives going into it because he didn't get to have Ryan Day doesn't have the opportunity to have a 6-7 season or a rebuilding season. Like he jumped into it feet first, and I thought he handled it very well. So I gave him credit for that. I mean, there's so many ways to go. Personally, I like the guy. I kind of like the way he handles himself. I like the way he talks in press conferences. I like the way his team seems to respond. There was several times this year to where a team, I think they honestly could have just quit and just been like, all right, let's just give like Nebraska, let's not fight through this. You know what I mean? But they still did. And after the Oregon game, we all had the conversation, is this a 4-loss Ohio State team? Like, we all had this conversation in Ohio State land. They didn't. They rallied. They got really, really, really good. Ran into a buzzsaw in Ann Arbor, recovered from that. Have a great Rose Bowl, had a great, now, and he's had a great offseason so far, which we'll get into. So there's so many facets I think he learned a lot. I think he made a ton of mistakes in the offseason by sticking with what he knew and was comfortable. But then I think he also immediately turned around. Like we all said all season, like this guy's got to go, this guy's got to go, this guy's got to go. This is not saying that these coaches that were on the squad can't coach college football.
That's
It
it.
was just
That's it.
it was the wrong combination for what Day is trying to build, and he pulled the trigger on all of them, which is amazing. We never see a coach do this or coaching staff. This is NFL stuff that he's doing, which he's an NFL guy. So is it going to pay off? I think so. If nothing else, morale's up, enthusiasm's up. I assume recruiting's up. With what he's done, he's done nothing but positives for the program since the season ended. So if his worst season is lose 2 games, win an awesome Rose Bowl, and then have a great offseason, if that's the worst thing Ryan Day ever does, then he's going to be a Hall of Fame coach. I know that was a lot, but there's just so much to unpack here.
We're tapped into Locked On Buckeyes here on this Monday evening, live right here on Twitter and Facebook with my guy, Jeff Hunt from the Off the Ball Network. Jeff, you said something about the Nebraska game. And I think with this year and looking in totality in what everything Ryan Day has done, we can rip him for the coaching hires. We can rip him for not firing guys in the middle of the season. We can rip him for the rotations, which he did not slow down on offense and on defense. We can rip him for a lot of things. One thing I think we all need to give Ryan Day credit for, and I don't do this enough, just being honest with you, want to be transparent. Nebraska football, and you are older than me, you have seen Nebraska at its highest of highs. Now, in 95, when Tommy Frazier, when Nebraska obliterated Florida in that Fiesta Bowl, I was, 7? I think I was 6 or 7 at that time. I wasn't really a college football fan. I knew what college football was. I knew what college basketball was, but I didn't know about what Nebraska football was. I didn't know who Tommy Frazier was, Danny Warfel. I didn't know about any of these guys. But the one thing I know now that I know I'm learning more about that Nebraska football team, Tom Osborne was a crazy good recruiter. It was one of those areas where in recruiting, Nebraska, you can say, Jay, well, the recruiting is different now. Is it really different? Is it really? Yes, it is a little bit different, but the best players go to the best school. Let's not get it twisted. The best players go to the best school. You can say, well, Jay, Ryan, it's the players are doing what these recruiting databases want. No. The best players go to the best schools. And back at that time, Nebraska had the best players. Look at it. They won 3 national championships in 4 years. We went out at Nick Saban. Tom Osborne used to run in college football. I think one thing Nebraska has not done lately, and you can look at the recruiting databases if you want to be a nerd and look and see where Nebraska ranks with the recruits. Nebraska recruiting sucks. I don't care how good Scott Frost is at coaching. He can be the best coach in the world. He is not recruiting the best. He's not recruiting at all at a level that needs to be. Purdue recruits better players, I think, sometimes than Nebraska, or maybe the same level. And it's like, well, what's the problem? You're not getting those guys. Nebraska's fallen off to a point so far, and the respect that Scott Frost wants to get, he does not get. So the best players aren't going there, and that's to me, it's the biggest reason why they're not winning. You put average players average players on Nebraska, guys that could use their brain. Nebraska beats Ohio State. Why does Ohio State win that game? Because they have better players. That's the main reason why they win that game. I mean,
think about it, Jay. They won that game because of a freshman running back named Travion Henderson. Recruiting. They literally, I say it probably 4 times a year about Ohio State. They won that game because they won that game in April. That's why to iterate your point, you're exactly right. You take 2 or 3 our 5 stars off, it's a completely different Big Ten.
Completely. And I do think I can rip Ryan Day for certain things in recruiting. People say, 4-star, 5 stars, that probably guy's a 5-star. I personally don't care about that. But I do know you need 4 and 5 stars to win national championships. This is not a crazy formula. It's not rocket science. The reason why Georgia is good this year, when they dominated, they recruit like crazy. You could say Kirby Smart is a bad coach and he can't get his quarterback room correct, whatever. He knows how to get top talent down there in Athens, Georgia, the same way Ryan Day knows how to get top talent in Columbus every single year. One thing Ryan Day has done, he's upped his level of recruiting, and he's also learning how to adjust on the fly. The recruits he has in Columbus are amazing. And I think that's why this year was the way that it was. Despite all the issues, despite players leaving in the middle of the year, despite the coaching issues, the players love Ryan Day. The players believe in Ryan Day. And it's because of the recruits he brings in here. I'm not knocking anything right now. That'll be another show down the road. But recruiting is one area where I think people lose sight and sometimes don't really appreciate what it is to have a good coach that's a recruiter. Urban Meyer, no matter what X's and O's Urban Meyer did, Urban Meyer was a really good recruiter. One reason why Jim Tressel went to 1, 2, 3 BCS national championship games was because he was an elite recruiter. Recruiting matters. And I think in this day and age in college football, we can look at everything and break down all the X's and O's and still forget how to appreciate a coach that knows how to up the level of recruiting when it was already at a high level when Urban Meyer left. And Ryan Day keeps getting better. And I like the trend in quarterbacks. Think about this. Quinn Ewers leaves. The guy that goes right there in that recruiting class in 2022 is a 4-star. But everything my eyeballs tell me is that recruiting database is wrong, and Devin Brown is a better quarterback than Quinn Ewers was in high school.
Hot take.
It is a hot take, but I go off my eyeballs. Ryan Day's recruiting really assisted this team this year because without right recruiting, we could be looking at a 4-5 loss football team, and people will be saying, Ryan Day, I know it's year 3, but buddy, you got to go. This ain't working.
Well, I mean, think about it. 2 true freshmen were huge. I mean, you got Burke and Henderson. Like without those two, like there's another loss in there somewhere. I mean, at least one, and another loss in college football buries you. A 3-loss season is useless in college football. So you're right about everything. And I that's my notes too. Like great on recruiting, had to, and all these coaches had to pivot in the middle of the summer when the NIL decision came across. And then we're talking, Days recruiting, guys in the late sale, like JTT came in what, 3 weeks, July 4th. I mean, so you're recruiting, but you're also like coaching. It is a crazy world. I thought he handled it very well, because of the training. Not every coach does that. For instance, just to pick another similar program out, I don't think Dabo pivoted as well in the summer as Ryan Day. Believe me, everybody, I'm not saying Clemson's dead or anything like that. They're going to be very good next year, but I don't think he dealt with it different. He was kind of resistant to it, but his team was much older. Like nobody talks about how young Ohio State was. This defense was so young. The whole team's young because when you're that good, players leave, blah, blah, blah. So to try but he never lost his cool either. Just even the way the sidelines they honestly feel better than they did when Urban was there. It was always funny because you felt Urban was out of every game, but they won every game.
Yeah.
And that was just his thing. Urban's a maniac, but he was also, there's a conversation we had about how good of a coach Urban Meyer was someday. Once the smoke clears and everything settles down and we look what happened in Jacksonville, people are going to realize like, wow, this guy did some amazing things. But Day's just different. Like the sidelines feel different. The players feel different, but they never feel disengaged. The offense and defense, as different as they were this year, never felt like they were separate, which can really happen on a football team and can bring down a football team. He gets a lot of credit for that because that'll break a team. That will absolutely break a team. Your offense scores a touchdown, then your defense gives up a touchdown. You get a hard divide there. Never happened this year. The quarterbacks, as crazy as that was, always seemed to be on the same page. The receivers, did their thing. It was just every group you felt like they understood the mission, understood their part. They came into the Rose Bowl. That was his biggest test of the year. How much do they care? That was the whole conversation. They apparently cared a lot. I mean, the defense cared a lot. It doesn't matter how bad they were. They still cared. They tried. The offense was amazing. That says a lot about Ryan Day. We've even seen the great Nick Saban. Again, I'm not saying Ryan Day's Nick Saban. I'm saying, but we've even seen Nick Saban's teams not care about a bowl game. I don't hold it against him or whatever. Actually, about the same point in Nick Saban's career as you got Ryan Day in his Ohio State career, that's when Nick Saban got thumped by Utah in that weird, I think it was a Sugar Bowl years and years ago. I don't even think Utah was in the Pac-12 yet. I'm certain they weren't in the Pac-12.
Could have been.
that you just have these hiccup games that nobody will remember except for insane people like us. Day could have had that against this Utah team. Nobody would have really cared, but he didn't. You know what I mean? He got his team ready, he coached it like a pro, and he moved on. He said everything right. Awesome beard. Love the beard. Hope he keeps it.
I hope he keeps it too.
Yeah, I like the beard more than I do when he's the Eddie Munster look. I'm not as big a fan of, even though I'm an Eddie Munster. You know what I mean? But I like the beard. It came in good. No, he does. He seems like, and I also know that he's going to be in the NFL someday. I realize the writing on the wall with Ryan Day. I know this isn't 20 years of Ryan Day and all this, but I'll take what I get right now. And if as long as he tends to the program and keeps it at a high level, the next coach will take over, and we won't take that step back. That's the important thing. We can't let it deteriorate, and then he takes off, and then now we've taken a step back, and we're like, oh, what do we do now? Which we've seen happen with way too many teams over the years.
B+ for myself for Ryan Day for the season. Jeff gave him a B. Did a little bit more in recruiting than I expected, but hey, just where the show went. Jeff, this was fun. I really think Ryan Day in the season. I think we're going to look back at this year, kind of how you always talk about the 2015 Sugar Bowl when the Ohio State won their first the championship under Urban Meyer. He said that was kind of a turning point for Nick Saban. I wonder how 2021 might be a turning point for Ryan Day, where he's quickly shifting and saying, I have to adjust.
Great analogy, Jay. Great analogy.
I wonder if this is going to be one of those years where Ryan Day looks back 10 years down the road and he says, well, it wasn't the Alabama game that kind of got me. It was that Michigan game, that Nebraska game, the Purdue game, not so much.
But Oregon game?
Oregon, Penn State, it wasn't just one game. It was the entire season where I'm like, I made changes before the season. Didn't really change enough, changed too much, and it really hurt me. But I can learn from that. Jeff, we got to get out of here, man. We're out of time. I appreciate you coming back on for our grades, end of year grades for these coaches. Well, this coach. If you could let everybody know where they can catch you on Twitter and where they can catch all the good stuff going on at the Off the Ball Network as well.
Yeah. I do the Off the Ball Network. Off the Ball Network now is offtheballnetwork.substack.com. It's pretty cool. It's working out really great. So go to, check out the Substack stuff. It's, all the guys over there, whatever sport you like, there's something there for you. And then, I'm on Twitter at jhunt006, always engaging the fans, always active, always ready to hear the negatives and positives. And, you can find me at Jeff Needs Sports too. Got a lot of fun stuff coming up in the off season, to look at, take a break from some of the breakdowns and stuff that used to me and Jay doing. We're going to do some fun stuff with some movies and things like that. So, and again, I want to thank Jay and thank Locked On Buckeyes for having me on.
And guys, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. This is not the only time Jeff will be with us this week. He'll be with us tomorrow talking more about some coaches, not Ryan Day, but some guys that will be making their first time being on the sidelines in Columbus in the fall of 2022. We're out of here for the day, kind of closing the show in a weird way. But guys, enjoy your Monday, Martin Luther King Day. If you're watching us live right now on Twitter or YouTube, this is the audio version. We'll be up on Tuesday. And we all know Jeff will be back on Wednesday, bringing the heat like he always does.